Dr. Barbara Bell, Captain United States Navy, retired. I was a naval aviator, and I'm a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. I went there when women were a novelty. In the beginning,
For sure.
I was in the fourth class of women to go to the Naval Academy. And though it was extremely challenging and difficult, I would say it prepared me absolutely well for my career in aviation.
Mm.
I went on to graduate from U.S. Navy Test Pilot School and then had a fantastic career in the U.S. Navy as an aviator and then also into program and project management. A number of years ago, I decided to recreate myself as an educator. So I picked up and moved to Vanderbilt University. Yep.
Love that.
Vanderbilt University. I got my doctorate in higher education leadership and policy. I
Okay.
worked at a center for STEM education for girls, and then Vanderbilt invited me back to teach leadership. And then just recently, gentleman that I met 30 years ago in grad school asked me to marry him. So I picked up and
Oh,
I
wow.
moved to Annapolis, Maryland, and now I am teaching at the Naval Academy. So these, my opinions are my own and do not represent the U.S. Navy. I just want to go on record by saying that.
Thank you for sharing that, Barbara.
Uh,
Congratulations, too.
absolutely. So I'm thrilled to be back here in Annapolis. I graduated in 1983 from the U.S. Naval Academy.
Wow.
Now I'm back teaching students, raising the next generation of leaders for our world.
Yeah, leadership is very important, especially critical leadership. So I applaud you
Absolutely.
for bringing that in the educational space where right now it's a lot of transactional things, right? Return
Well,
on
there's
investment.
some, but our job is to inspire. And
Hmm.
that's what I've dedicated this portion of my life to, is to inspire that next generation. I was able to do it, therefore I'm here to tell women they can do it as well. There will be struggles along the way, but grit and persistence are built through struggle. There's really no way around it. And
Mm.
the hard stuff is actually the good stuff because it takes us to places that we've never before imagined. Uh,
Yeah, not at the moment though, right? But hearing this, right? It's like something everyone experienced, but like no one really talks about the downfalls. They talk about the success. So or
right.
the challenges along the way.
Mhm.
So thank you for sharing that.
You bet. Uh,
So
absolutely.
sorry. So Barbara, growing up, what did you think your life would be like today and what was the career journey to get here? Like also, what is your preference? Would you like to be called Dr. Bell, Dr. Barbara, Captain Bell?
You can call me Barbara. That's fine. I
Okay.
tell I tell my students they can call me Captain Bell, they can call me Dr. Bell, but that's it. And
Okay.
that's in the classroom. But I want to reach as many young women today as possible and know
Okay.
that I am absolutely approachable. So thank you for asking.
Oh,
But
I love that.
as a kid, I have this picture that I show when I'm a speaker, and it's a picture of the clouds. And I remember as a kid laying in my backyard and looking up at these cloud formations and really not knowing what that would mean. Every
Mm,
once in a while, I'd see an airplane fly by, but I had no context back then that women could actually fly.
mm.
Then my parents raised the three of us kids they told us we were all going to college. And not if, it's we were all going to college and we
You had
find a way
to.
and we had to find a way to get there.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't money at home to afford the kind of education that we so desired.
So I guess looking into the sky, and not knowing that women can fly, what made you want to go and fly?
What made me want to go and fly?
Like like your sign, fly high.
Yes, fly high. So the I made my way to the U.S. Naval Academy. My older brother had gone off to the Air Force Academy, and I saw all of his opportunities. So I came here and just looking around for opportunity. That's what I want young women today to do. Look around. And so I spent my time here at the Naval Academy looking around and what is it that they truly want to do? And maybe it
Mm,
takes me back to that time, looking up at the clouds. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm
mm.
going to fly. I took private pilot's lessons when I was still a midshipman. And
Okay.
then just before I graduated, I met the very first woman to graduate from Navy test pilot school. So I
So
got
you were in
locked
the thick
in.
of foundation.
The foundation, the exposure to role models is just
Mm,
critically important. And so Lieutenant Colleen Nevius, she told me how to get to test pilot school. I copied down, I have it burned into my memory what I needed to do to get to Navy test pilot school. So not only was I going to go to flight school, later on, I was going to go to Navy test pilot school.
right.
It was like a switch was flipped.
And this guidance is what allowed you to know that pathway, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's important, right? Having to knowing what you want to do and how to navigate it, right? I think that's the
Mhm.
biggest challenge for some women in the field is where to get started. So thank you for sharing like the connection and the guidance with like, mentorships and reaching out. I guess I would say a lot of students will hesitate to reach out. What are your advice or insight on that for women especially?
I'd say seek out role models. Sometimes role models they're like the lighthouse in the distance. You're
Mm,
looking around and you see, oh, I would like to be like her. And then there will be people that come across your path and you say, oh, I would like to be mentored by them.
mm,
I did not have a lot of women mentors. I had male mentors.
okay.
But a male mentor came along just when I needed him the most. And I
Yeah,
remember he said to me, "You can graduate at the top of your flight school class, and I will help you do so."
that was good.
So
Yes.
those role models and seek out those mentors. Ask a lot of questions. The more
Uh,
questions I ask, the luckier I get.
What question? Well, can you give an example of like the type of questions you asked or one of the questions?
Sure, sure. You see someone and it might look kind of cool what they're doing. Just say,
Mhm.
how did you get into that role?
Right.
What is it that's attractive about it? Those kind of questions. Then as you get to working with a mentor, what could you see me doing next?
Mm. Okay. I like that.
What can you see me doing next?
So
Mm-hmm.
you speak a lot about the guidance and finding your pathway and connecting with folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can
Yeah.
give you those resources or help you navigate those like
Mm-hmm.
questions that you may have for your field.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most satisfying, I guess, parts of the work that you get to do, right? Now that you are in the thick of things, have navigated those experiences and accomplished your goals and dreams. I know you're still living them right now through
Right,
your
right. I'm in my next phase.
yeah, your next phase. So what was the most satisfying part of being in the Navy? I mean, sorry, in the Air Force.
No, no,
Um,
no, 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 no. Navy, Navy, Navy,
Navy. Okay,
Navy,
I thought I said it
Navy.
right. I'm like in
Help
the
me. I
Navy.
got to help you out here. Okay.
Sorry,
No,
in the
Navy,
Navy, which
naval
I should
aviation.
know, because my brother, yeah, the branches he's deploying next month.
So it's on your mind.
Yeah, he's in the army though, so it's a
Uh,
whole different
that's
branch.
all right. It's
Most of
okay.
my family is in the army, but so what was the most
The
satisfying part
satisfying piece
of
of
being in the Navy and being a captain? What parts were the most appealing for you?
number one, the opportunity to serve,
Mm,
the opportunity to serve my country and the opportunity to serve others. Those are two of the things, that opportunity to serve and to be among others who are very mission focused. And particularly in aviation, we have a lot of fun. And so to be around these other aviators that tend to be lighthearted, they like to think fast, they think on their feet. There's a lot of
mm,
banter that goes back and forth in the aviation community. And so
right.
in some ways, we keep each other in check, but we also keep each other motivated and moving forward. I don't think there's an aviator that I have met yet that didn't love what they were doing.
Mm,
So we
makes
love what
sense.
we're doing and we get to live in the third dimension. So becoming an aviator has changed, has changed fundamentally the way that I look at the world.
Mm,
That sense of
can,
being up, that sense of being up, looking at the big picture. Where are the pieces, coming together? Where did they fit? How do we
mm,
inspire others to learn how to soar? So it's always the sense of up.
and
That's what
building
has
that.
changed for me.
Soar, I like that. How do they fly? How do they soar?
Mhm.
So I guess, in terms of the community that you have, right? So
Yeah.
you said in aviation, y'all lift each other up, y'all build community with each other. How did you get into those spaces?
How did I get into those spaces? Through the Naval Academy. The,
Okay.
the Naval Academy opened the world for me. I'm from a small town in northern Michigan,
Mhm.
and the Naval Academy opened the world to me.
Wow. Okay,
So
so that's your community and network and
that's
being
my
able to
community.
from that.
I was so in search of an education
Hmm.
that led me to more opportunity and to more opportunity and more opportunity. So that deep desire for education, then to see the world. And I didn't really understand what it meant to serve until I got to the Naval Academy. And then certainly after 28 and a half years in uniform, I know what it is to serve.
So continuing education was a big impact and factor for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's
Seek it
always a
out.
struggle, right? Whether we should go back to get training or education, at what part of our careers, like where do we continue to elevate our own self to be able to get into
Mhm.
spaces and connection? So
And we
thank you.
don't have to do it all at once. We don't
No.
have to do it all at once. We don't have to do it, by the time we turn 30. I went back to school in my 50s.
Wow.
And a colleague of mine, he went back to grad school at age 72.
Oh, wow. How did y'all keep the motivation?
Keep the
For
motivation
you, I should
to
say.
uh for all that schooling. Is that what you mean?
At that age and like just wanting to do something else or like get more education, like what kept you motivated to continue to
I knew
advance, I should say.
Well, I knew that there was going to be a next phase in my life. So
Mm,
after I hung up my uniform, I was consulting in the aerospace sector for several years and then recognized that that just wasn't filling me up any longer. So
gotcha.
I worked with a coach, as a matter of fact, a personal coach.
Oh, okay.
And then,
That's good to hear. And not a
yeah,
lot of people talk about that, like career coach or like just a
yeah. So
life
I
coach.
used he was a career coach, life coach, call him my 3-in-1 man. He was a he was a therapist, a life coach, and a spiritual director. And
Gotcha.
one day I walked into his office and I said, "No settling." I said, "I don't know what that means, Bill, but I need you to hold me to that." And less than an hour later, I walked out of his office having said I was going to pursue a doctorate in leadership in higher education at a major university.
And you finished, Dr.
And
Bell.
yes, now I am Dr. Bell.
I like that. No settling.
No settling.
Never settling for less, right? I think that's where like imposter phenomenon and just not knowing what's on the other side can prevent some of, well, women and students from like pursuing.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so no settling.
No
Thank
settling. And imposter syndrome is not a diagnosis. It is not a diagnosis. That's what I teach my students. I taught that at Vanderbilt and I teach that here. Imposter syndrome is not a diagnosis. We all doubt ourselves. We just have to take the next step.
Okay. I was gonna say, can you explain that a little bit more? Because I know that's a term that a lot of students will manifest, right?
Yes, they'll say, I have imposter syndrome as if it's a diagnosis
Rather than a phenomenon.
rather than a phenomenon. And we all doubt ourselves from time to time. And all that we're asked to do is to take that next step forward. It's not, it's not a diagnosis. It's certainly not a terminal diagnosis.
Oh no.
I
And
am,
I think that's what
you could
like,
say I'm experiencing imposter syndrome.
right,
I have it.
that part. Yeah, I think, well, no, I think I was on a panel where like a clinical psychologist was like, it's a phenomenon, it's not a symptom, right? It's not a
Mhm.
diagnosis. So like
Mhm.
people tend to say that. So we've been correcting that like kind of language, but
Mhm.
I think like you said, they experience imposter phenomenon and not wanting or feeling like they belong in those spaces.
Right.
So I guess this leads to our next question. What resources or platforms have been most helpful to you in your career when you experience whether imposter phenomenon or just trying to a challenge or barrier in your career?
Oh, goodness. I think
It's okay.
I think my 4 years at the Naval Academy taught me a tremendous amount about grit and persistence, and then getting to the point of claiming who we are and what we have done. So when I think of when I think of women that's when I'm doubting myself,
Mm-hmm.
when I start doubting myself, I have to stop and just look at what I have done in my life and say, okay, I'm just impatient right now, or I'm hungry, or I'm tired.
Yeah.
And
Taking a
how
moment
much,
to reflect on that.
yeah, take a moment to reflect. So in my book, for example, I have it broken into three sections, and the first part is called Gritting It Out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next part is Navigating Turbulence.
I like that.
And then the third part is Earning Your Wings. And earning your wings could mean a multitude of things in different career paths. For me, I literally earned my wings of gold.
Mm. Yeah, I saw that. I was like, you had done a lot and did a walk. I definitely have to read the book. And teach our grad students about those grits and persistent, but also like
Mhm.
I guess between this dream and nightmare, right? Like this idea of
Yeah, you're working to finish your PhD, right?
right. So
Yeah,
like this is what the reality is, and then here's the dream. So what keeps us going? But no, I'm hearing a lot of community and finding that specific community that have provided you like with this understanding of like how you move and navigate with life, whether it's grits and
right.
persistence,
Mhm.
or earning your wings. What does that mean? And having that soundboard with other people.
Right. Cultivate a good group of friends that
Mm,
are from different backgrounds, different shapes and sizes and belief systems.
mm,
It's our job to cultivate that group of friends. The ones that are going to hold you accountable, the ones that are going to say, hey, I can see you're having a bad day, but I know who
mm.
you are. I'm here to remind you who you are.
What are your thoughts about networks? Like, so you talk about mentors, right?
Mhm.
And role models.
Right.
Um, so what are your thoughts about mentor and role model versus like sponsors and um, networks?
I've been thinking a lot about three things: one, role modeling, mentoring, and coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So a role model is like that lighthouse, like I can see it. That's where I'm headed. Maybe for me,
Mm-hmm.
that's I see the PhD, there it is. And then the mentoring could be, your peers
Right.
that are helping you, someone who's maybe just a year ahead of you. It could be your professors.
Mm-hmm.
And then coaching. Who's
Mm-hmm.
gonna, who can I work with that's gonna ask me those deep, hard, powerful questions that are going to continue to push me beyond what I think I can do.
Mm-hmm. What is one question that have you reflecting a lot? I guess like when you have that deep thought and reflection. So for me, it's like, what's the next step all the time? So what is your question?
A great question as working with a client or working with a student is, and what else?
And what else?
And what
That's
else?
that's
Because
a
that
good.
can lead you in a direction of looking at the whole person instead of
Mhm,
I just want to pursue my PhD. So what is going on for you,
right.
in other aspects of your life?
And what else?
And what else? And what else?
I like that. So I guess this is a question. What skills do you feel like you use the most or are the most important for the work that you do or in your professional career?
For the skills I use the most, building relationships. That's what I use the most. I think of, day one of class.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing that I can do is, learn my students' names and then have them learn one another's names and work to build relationship throughout that semester. And that
Mm-hmm.
translates, directly to your work, your professional life. I mean, teaching is my professional life right now. Teaching and coaching and speaking. I've got a collage of work that I do
Mm-hmm.
right now. So building those relationships and, investing in them. I asked my daughter the other day, I said, does this group of friends make you a better person?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good question to ask ourselves.
That is a good question. And it's all subjective, right? It depends on what exposure you're
Sure,
around.
sure. And we certainly need to build skills. So, as an aviator, I needed to build my aviation skills. So
Right.
build your skills,
Which is there, right? I
deepen,
think the
deepen
biggest
those,
thing.
deepen those skills, bring others around you,
Mm.
ask like, and what else or what's next? And others can help you with what's next. We don't have to do it on our own.
And we have a lifetime from what I'm like hearing, right? We don't all have to do it at once. Like I'm in the
Yeah, Jenny, you
whatever
got it.
age that I am in, and I'm like, oh,
Right,
I gotta have this by this
right,
time.
right.
And I think a lot of like I guess I speak for myself as a woman. Like I have the time clock clicking or ticking, and other external pressures, especially when it comes to career, right? So
Hmm.
when we talk about skill sets and building relationships, I think that's a great soft skill that a lot of people miss. A lot of
Hmm.
people think about the technical or the education, which is important, right, to have.
Absolutely.
But
You
a lot
gotta,
of
you gotta nail that.
right. A lot of people, or I guess when talking with students, because I career advise as well on a day-to-day
Hmm.
basis,
Hmm.
is those soft skills, those people, right? Learning people, building
Right.
relationships, and then maintaining those networks. Which a lot of students always ask, like, is that really a thing now? Like with social media and
Oh,
all
it,
of these.
it needs to be more of a thing because of social media. So years ago, I started asking the question, how do you think big? So I just started asking that question to all sorts of people. And I'd say, would you like to have coffee and we'll talk about it? And sometimes the person I had asked would say, well, what do you mean by thinking big? And I said, well, what comes to mind for you? And I was astounded where that led. One conversation would lead to like, oh, you need to invite, David out to coffee because he marched with Martin Luther King. Like, oh, I should do that. And I remember uh, David Duncombe. He has since passed away. He was
Mhm.
let's see, he was a chaplain at Yale Medical School years
Oh,
ago.
wow.
And he wrote up a whole page of notes for me. And it was always, oh, and you should meet so and so. So we would meet for
Wow.
coffee or we'd meet for lunch with a question.
Mm.
And so that's
And just
something that your students can do to say, just go ask someone this week, hey, how do you think big? Ask them to go on a walk, ask them for a cup of coffee, and just work on that question.
mm, I like that. Thank you. So you do a lot, Dr. Bell. From teaching to owning your own company or organization. I don't know what you
I have a
consider
small business. Mhm.
small
Yes.
business, as well as maintaining the relationships and being a speaker. How do you
Mhm.
manage work and life?
I seek to always have some white space on my calendar.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. I think of the time, my last couple years in the Navy, I was a major program manager and
Mm,
I was just jam packed with my schedule. And when I retired, I wanted to have time with my kids. So
mm,
that was one of the reasons that I retired. And I did have time, and I had some white space on my calendar, and that there was nothing there.
Mm,
And so I seek to do that to ensure that I've got some white space. And then noticing when I don't have that,
mm,
that it's time to add more. When I think of work-life balance, it's not I'm staying balanced and I'm in the center. We experience these excursions. And so when we're experiencing one of those excursions, it's like, uh-oh, I'm starting to get out of balance. I need to correct back. And what I find is if I can maneuver back and forth like this, as opposed to I'm balanced and staying in the center, because no one can quite stay in the center. But recognizing when, I've been away, I've been away too much, got to come home, have dinner with my husband. Um, just, sometimes just throwing too many silly things on my calendar.
mm.
I've had to
That's
had to step back. And so that's keeping that awareness of having some white space on my calendar, some space that is not blocked with anything that
Mhm.
I have to do.
So it was more so like learning burnout and how to manage it from your program management role.
Yeah. Learning burnout or I don't know about learning burnout.
As experiencing, yeah. I wanted to be like, we
Experiencing
recognizing you.
burnout. I have always I've always taken care of myself, I would say physically, spiritually, emotionally. Those are critically important. I was an athlete, and so I used to be a runner. Now I'm a big walker. So ensuring that, we're taking care of ourselves, in that way. I'm a woman of faith, ensuring that I, get to my house of worship on a regular basis. Those are those elements are all part of who Barb is.
Mm. So it's all interconnected.
It is all interconnected.
Your holistic self.
Right.
So if you're not doing well in one, you're not going to do well in the other.
Right. Okay. I'm
But
not,
it's a flow of
but
things.
yeah, it's that flow, and there'll be times, like when you're working on your comprehensive exams where you're just gonna have to put your head down and you're just gonna have to do it. But
Keep it
then
moving.
then you're gonna move through it and you're gonna go exercise again, take care of yourself, call your mom, call your partner.
Those are the part, right? Those are the parts that are challenging,
Yes.
especially when you're in the thick of it as a student, like myself being full-time and a student, like I experience these things. So I know students are trying to navigate that too, right? What does that balance look like between our dreams and our personal life? So I guess to end it, many students feel like they have their careers figured out early on in undergrad. I
Okay.
laugh all the time because it's always a change, right?
Mhm.
What would be your advice to a student wanting to do similar work to yours?
Go join the Navy and see the world.
Join the Navy and see the world. What do you mean by see the world?
Join the Navy. Join the Navy and see the world. That's what the Navy did for me. So, officer candidate school is open to college graduates. So look at that opportunity. Like, oh, I could become a naval officer, not just through the Naval Academy and not just through NROTC. You can go direct into officer candidate school.
Mhm,
And the opportunities that the Navy will offer you are sometimes just feel boundless. Here I
mhm,
went off to the Naval Academy to get the education that was way beyond my family's means.
mhm.
And that opened the door to flying. And then that door was open to test pilot school. Then the Navy offered me graduate school. And after 28 and a half years, I hung up my uniform and then I used the GI Bill to get my doctorate.
Why did you choose higher education and leadership, organizational leadership as your
Because
second career?
that's where the next generation of leaders is coming from,
Okay.
like
And your
yourself.
philosophy on leadership?
My
Right.
my philosophy on leadership. Oh my goodness. Um, let's see. It is about inspiring others towards a common mission. That's what leadership's about. And leaders can be developed. I am a
Mm.
firm believer in that.
Did you
Leader.
see yourself teaching at all?
I did not see myself teaching, but as I was consulting and finding that that just didn't fill me up any longer, I
Mm-hmm.
took time to figure out, okay, well, what is calling me, and developing the next generation is what continues to call me.
Mm. So to conclude, Dr. Bell, as a woman who worked wonder, what is or what is some lasting words or advice or insight you would like to give anyone who see this informational interview?
Absolutely. I'd love for you to read my book. It's called Flight Lessons, Navigating Through Life's Turbulence and Learning to Fly High. And I target young women.
Mm,
There are questions at the end of each section for reflection. And then if you want to know what the bottom line of my book is, I'll tell you what it is. So for many years, I was always trying to fit in, trying to be, one of the guys. And my career, I was so often one of the only or the only woman along the way. And what I learned is that when you don't fit in, choose to stand out.
mm,
And it's a choice. We're all going to find ourselves in places that we feel that we don't belong or we don't fit in. So
mm.
choose to stand out. Choose to stand out.
Okay. Choose to stand out. Thank you, Dr. Bell.
Thank
Um,
you.
I appreciate the time and the conversation. Definitely going to take a look at the book. I think it's been my research is using contemplative practices and pedagogies to bring
Great.
healing to our community. So my research is on racial trauma and children of immigrants. Very fitting right now,
Very right
in
now.
this world.
Mhm.
So definitely will take some lessons from that book, or maybe, cite you
You
in
can
my
write your own.
dissertation.
You can write your own. Hmm.
A book is on the go list, like you said. How do you think big? And that's
There you
maybe
go.
when I'm sitting and watching the kids and writing at the same time.
There you go.
But
There
like you
you go.
said, the biggest mission is to inspire other women to
Yeah.
know that they can be where they are. And I think, well, I know that you have shared that and done that. So I
Mhm.
will definitely keep you in the loop on if anybody reaches out.
Fantastic.
And we'll link your website as well to the book. When we advertise the informational interview, I'll give you the final snippet before we post it, okay?
Okay. All right, Jenny.
In
What
the
a pleasure.
meantime, if you have any questions, let me know. But again, appreciate the time. I know you're a busy woman. So
You bet.
um,
You
thank you,
bet.
Dr. Bell. Have a good one, okay?
Okay. Take good care. All right. Bye-bye.